All right, welcome back, everybody. This is my name's Chris. I'll be your host today with Sarah-Daye and Jordyn joining me. Hi,
Hi.
guys.
Hi.
On this episode, we're going to be of Book Watch. We're going to be continuing our discussion of The Housemaid, Frida McFadden's book from 2022, and the adaptation from this year, 2025. The Housemaid, directed by Paul Feig. In this episode, we're talking about the plot and the story differences between the movie and the book. Today, we'll be comparing the major scenes, which were adapted faithfully, which were altered, and what was omitted entirely. Start with, we got Millie's interview with Nina. What did you guys think of that?
It was pretty spot on. I mean, I think there's only so many ways to botch that scene. So, yeah, it was pretty spot on. I think it was a good way to get some background on Millie and like the fact that she's living in her car and why she's so desperate for the job. Um, and so it was pretty spot on with the book. Sarah-Daye, what do you think?
Yeah, agreed. I don't have any thoughts on the beginning of the film. I know we're going to get into more of the changes in the later half of the film, but the first half, without getting too much into it being rushed, I mean, I think you have to. And if you were going to rush anything, the beginning was the perfect spot to rush things because we
Yeah.
thought the beginning was so boring. So, yeah, I thought this was fine.
Yeah.
They moved a little bit of that first scene that she has talking to herself at the beginning. It sounds like a lot of her books start that way with that um, view of the past and then jumping forward to the present again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting seeing the film kind of take that out of order, but it was still kind of there. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. The book
I
started
like
with
that they made
her.
her point of view her writing in a journal and
yeah,
talking
Yeah.
about how her counselor was saying to write in a journal, and that's how we kind of got her overview.
Yeah.
that worked well. Yeah.
Yeah. I
The
wish they
next,
hadn't cut
go
this.
ahead.
Sorry, I wish they hadn't cut the scene of her talking to the lady cop from the end. Because that, to me, like that made it feel like she just kind of came out of nowhere. So I think if they had started with that like flash forward at the beginning of the movie, it would have tied things up a little bit better. But like it is not that serious. Like if they needed to cut time, then like that's fine.
The thing that
Mhm.
makes that one interesting is that you're not sure who is dead, and so if you have this puddle of blood and just a vague conversation of somebody's dead, and then you've got Nina being crazy all through the beginning here, you don't know, and it adds to that suspense of, oh my,
Mm-hmm.
she's going to do something here, and we don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but
Yeah.
we assume it's going to be Nina dying.
Before I saw it, I was wondering how they would do that, and I was like, because you don't know whose perspective it is either. You don't know if it's Nina or Millie,
Right.
and again, you don't know who's dead. So I was thinking it could be either one of them. Like you just see the back of a blonde person's head, because I think they're both pretty blonde in the book. In the movie, Millie's not as blonde as Nina is. But yeah, I thought opening just with her pulling up in the car was fine, getting right into
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Then for our second scene, we had the PTA notes disappearing, and Nina's kind of unraveling a little bit after she's been hired on. And that scene definitely was quite intense with just jumping right into the crazy, I felt like, which I liked.
Yeah, maybe the book had a little bit more build up, but again, like I just said, if we were going to rush anything, the beginning is where to rush it. And I didn't have any complaints about her unraveling so quickly after they hire Millie.
And
Yeah.
knowing
It.
future sight, you know that she's supposed to, be trying to make herself look worse and making her
Mhm.
husband and him kind of her husband and Millie kind of get pushed together a little bit. So
Yeah, it was honestly like a little bit scary how Amanda portrayed it. Like
Mhm.
she really like had this like wild look in her eye, and you were like, oh, like you really did think like maybe she could get violent with Millie because she feels like Millie has done something wrong towards her. And so like, and again, we talked about it last week with like how great Amanda Seyfried was in this film, but like just from the first moment you see her, she's just nailing it and like really making you like Millie's looking at Andrew like, oh my God, she's crazy. And you're like, yeah, dude, she totally is crazy. And like, I'm a little nervous right now. And so she just does a great job with that. And it really does set the tone of like Millie being like, what have I gotten myself into here?
Definitely. And then we jump forward a little bit to the Broadway show that and the aftermath of that, which was kind of the next thing, or a little ways down, but next thing that was really big that Nina asked her to do, and kind of another way to show a mess up that wasn't really there.
Yeah. I mean, there's some more things that happen kind of in between that are like pretty much the same and not as significant, but like Millie like messing up the Broadway show and Nina getting upset about it, and then like it, we when you get the point of view change later and you find out that Nina did that on purpose to set up Andrew and Millie, it's like, it just is, it's perfect. And um yeah, it follows the book like really really closely, like pretty much exactly the same. um and it yeah, it's just a good, it was kind of a nice set piece. Like I like the restaurant set and the Broadway show set, like it looked pretty.
The thing I liked about the restaurant set was when we get Nina's perspective, he takes her to the same restaurant, which I don't
Same
think they
place.
did in the
Yes.
book. I don't think they
No.
made, if they did, they didn't make it as clear.
Mhm.
But it was definitely the same set in the film.
Yeah,
I
which
like
I
that. Yeah.
thought was like a great little
Yeah,
nod. Like this is not his first rodeo. He knows
exactly.
how to charm a woman and what to do to make her like trust him and fall for him, which was really great. And then yeah, like they end up sleeping together, and then Nina like, we'll get into, that's like kind of the next scene is they come back and Nina finds out, and then there's like that whole confrontation too.
There was a bit of the interesting part where she had been in prison for 10 years. So, she's in her journal, she's writing about how, it'd been like 10 years since she'd been with a man. And even then it was a high school experience and not an
Hmm.
adult interaction. So she was kind of hard up for it. It was easy for her to fall into that relationship a little bit there.
I think that
Yeah.
might be part of why Nina chose her.
Yeah.
Not only did she know that she needed a job, but
She was vulnerable.
she would fall for him as easy as he would fall for her.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. And then after that, we get the moments where Andrew has to kick Nina out, or kicks her out because she's being crazy, and locks. After that, we find him locking Millie in the attic, and then we see kind of the progression of going from um, being in love, being this lovey-dovey couple, to she breaks a plate and ends up having to um, be locked in an attic for unknown reasons at this point in the story, and we
Hmm.
get kind of that progression.
Yeah. Um, the plates is not the same reason that she gets locked in the attic in the book. In the book, she like is reading books off of his shelf and she leaves them out on the coffee table, and he says that that was unacceptable and that's why he locks her in.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So it's a totally understandable reason to lock someone in a room with
absolutely,
the
yeah.
books.
So
Kidding.
right. So I actually, this is one of the changes I think you were alluding to last week, Sarah-Daye, that I kind of liked this change, because it was like they were his mom's and like his grandma's and great grandma's like fine china plates that were like from England, so like they were very rare and very like personal to him, and so that kind of like made more sense versus like, really, like you just left books out and that's why you're being tortured. Like even like in a suspense like thriller like fiction novel, it still was like, really, like that's the best reason we could come up with. So this like made a lot more sense, and like, not that it ever is acceptable to do any of this, but it was like I understood more of like why that would be so triggering for Andrew, where he, in his like abusive evil mind, he would be like, yeah, that's what's gonna make me do that to her.
I think either way makes sense because he was abused himself, and I can totally see his mother getting mad at him for leaving books out and or like not putting toys away or not
True.
putting something away. So she locks him in the closet and makes him hold books.
True. Yeah.
And while I think the plates is a more visual representation of that and it works in this setting, and the fact that it's an accident, whereas leaving the books on the table, that's not an accident. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not a bad thing, but it's not an accident, whereas she got scared and dropped the plates. That is a pure accident, and then she gets punished for it. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that makes it more dramatic, I guess. Whereas in the book it builds. Well, no, I guess it builds for Nina. Sorry. Millie, it only happens to Millie the one time before she
Yeah.
takes things into her own hands. But I do like that it's a more dramatic and like what the fuck, bro? It was just an
Yeah.
accident. It's just a plate.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that opens it up for the like her punishment or like her atonement being more violent, because like
Mhm.
again in the book she just has to have these heavy books laid on her stomach for
Mhm.
like what is it, like 5 hours or something, which
3
like
hours.
3 hours, yeah, like which is painful and uncomfortable, but like not the same as having to slice open your own stomach with a chunk of ceramic plate or porcelain plate. Like that was
And
like
that's one of the changes. So in the book, she had to have the books on her stomach for 3 hours. Well, she actually only has it on her stomach for 2 hours and 59 minutes before
mm-hmm,
she takes the books off. So he's like, "Oh, you're a minute short. Start all over from minute 1." So she has
mm-hmm,
to do it again. So that in the book, when he pulls out his tooth, he doesn't pull it out by the root. So she's like, "Oops, it's not the root. You have to pull out another tooth." Where they
mm-hmm,
completely took that out for probably for time in the film, but you see him do that with Nina with the hair.
Right.
Um, so there's that portion of it, but also um, when they change it to cutting herself with the plate 24 times because it was 24 pieces of the plate, instead of having the 3 hours of books because she left 3 books out. That was a lot more gruesome, and like you think, wow, he's a monster, whereas putting books, like we just said, putting books on your stomach, I mean, I've never done it, I don't want to try it, so I can't say how
yeah,
torturous that is. But cutting yourself, that's a lot more torturous. And I was kind of shocked because if he's planning on making her his new wife, she just tore up her stomach. Like she's gonna scar. So she's never gonna be able to like go to a beach or the pool. Like I'm sure they have a nice pool at their golf club. So she's never gonna be able to show off her stomach. So that was just kind of like, I wonder why they made her do that in that location. Um, but for dramatic effect, I think the plates worked.
Yeah,
mm-hmm,
I agree. One more
yeah,
thought on the cycle of abuse. I'm wondering if it wasn't mom. Dad's dead, and she is programmed psychologically that this is what has to be done. But could that have been a cycle of violence from passed down from father to son? That he saw his mother get tortured this way and him over all his life, and
mm-hmm,
so he's created that cycle now. And honestly, I'd be almost more interested in the story if it had been the mother had killed her husband at one point too, and that becomes a little wink at the end of like, I got rid of my abuser, and I'm glad you did too. I almost wish that had
mm-hmm.
been a little bit more alluded to or something, or if that had been a thing.
Yeah, that could have been cool.
It could have been, but that's not what happens in the
Yeah,
book.
no, I get
And
that, but
it's
that was just a thought.
definitely, yeah, the mother is definitely the abuser. I think it would have been a more interesting story. Although I don't think I don't think she would allow her son to do that if she wasn't the abuser. And like you can already see him. That's what I wanted to talk about last week was you can see Andrew grooming Cece, not in a creep way, but in a abusive way. Like he in the book,
Mhm.
he's making her wear those dresses that are really itchy and uncomfortable, and she hates them. But he was raised prim and proper, so he's going to raise Cece prim and proper.
Yeah.
You get like the juice is a privilege, which is what he was told as a kid too. It seems
Yes.
like all those sorts of
Yeah.
things.
Well, that's what I was kind of alluding to last week as well with Cece. Like, she acts that way because she, like, as she's grown up under his thumb, she knows that if she messes up, mommy gets locked in the attic and it gets
Mhm.
punished. And so,
Right.
like, that's part of why she's so, like, cold and, like, not trusting, and she's not, like, affectionate the way, like, a normal kid her age would be, is because she is growing up in this abusive environment where if I do anything wrong, like play with my toys wrong or get dirty at school or don't wear the right clothes or don't have my hair done or whatever, like I might get punished, but also for sure my mom is going to get punished, and I don't want that to happen to my mom. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, that's why she's like that, because she's growing up in this abusive home.
Which is definitely an interesting topic to explore in this way, and and let people be seen that might be experiencing similar things. And I hope it can help some people that are seeing this on screen and maybe making a connection and able to break free.
Hmm.
But next up in our process here, we of going through the scenes, we have Nina's point of view, and when we get her all of her background info dumped onto us there, and when the story gets interesting as far as the book goes, apparently.
Yes, true. Wish, I think when we talked about it last week with Enzo, like this is really where like Enzo comes in and plays a bigger role, is when
Mhm.
he like, he recognizes what's happening to Nina. He sees the light on in the attic and he doesn't see her for a couple of days and he's worried about her and he checks on her and he becomes, kind of like the white knight character, like this is wrong. Let me help you. They try to figure out plans to get Nina out of this situation, and pretty much like almost all of that gets like removed, or at least it becomes a lot smaller than it is in the book. And I think that really sucks because, like we said, it's like, then what is the point of having Enzo in the movie at all if he's not doing all of these things that he's supposed to be doing?
Someone's got to take care of the
To
grounds.
piggyback to piggyback off that, they they cut a lot out of her background as well because he's the only one that believes her because Andrew has already gotten to all of the neighbors and all of the friends and all of the PTA ladies. And she
Yes.
broke down and told one of the women what Andrew was really doing. And she turned around and told Andrew that
Hmm.
Nina was about to have another breakdown because he had told everybody that she's crazy, she has psychosis. And also in the book, she started to believe that she did have psychosis when she was first in the hospital. She thought she really did almost drown her. She was gaslighted into believing it. Um, and then again, like she tried to trust the friend, or he locked her in the closet again. She made a mistake. He locked her in the closet again, and she's like, "Okay, I'm not out of my mind. This is really happening." And that's when she went to the friend, but he had already infiltrated everybody.
Hmm.
So she's really stuck here. And that's when
Yeah.
Enzo comes into play. And his
And
sister is the one. And he does mention that in the film, but you get a lot more of why he's important in the book,
hmm.
and how they plan. Like the whole passport thing was just a fleeting comment in the film. The sister was just a fleeting comment in the film. Um, and so I really don't know why he was important in the film.
Yeah. And just real quick, because you mentioned like the PTA ladies and stuff, there's also a line in the book that talks about how Andrew's dad was really close with the cops, and they were all dirty cops that, like, the Winchesters can do whatever they want because the cops, certain members of the police, a local police force, have been paid off by the Winchesters. And so Nina can't even go to the police and try to plead her case because they're all basically on Andrew's payroll, which, like,
Mm,
again, ties into the fact that the cop in the book in the beginning and at the end has that connection to his first fiance, and so like that's the one and only cop who would ever not take Andrew's side, and that's the only safe person, the way that Nina and Millie are able to get away with, the end of the story. um and so I think like it, again, when you take certain things out, you always are going to lose something, and so like not having the background of like the PTA ladies, the other moms in the circle, the mom talk ladies, uh, having their relationship and how they've been, swayed by Andrew, and then like the local police have been swayed by Andrew, and like not explaining how isolated Nina truly is, and therefore why Enzo is so important to her and why he matters so much. Like, you lose all of that when you take those things out of the film.
Definitely, that's all very true. And honestly, the cop at the end is part of one of the things that I was like, you if you don't have a cop that's going to look the other way, basically in this, it's Batman can't Batman without James Gordon allowing it in some ways, and so
Hmm.
without that cop being willing to look the other way, none of this happens. If they looked into where is her car at the time when she's supposed to have not been there, well, all the neighbors would have seen the cars at the driveway throughout that
Mhm.
whole week. If all these things, there's ways they could probably have figured it out, but for the fact that someone was looking the other way and finally willing to say, okay, enough. And
Yeah.
so but we get all that info, which was great, to finally get the story figured out. And then we get Millie's switching things up, the universe of her getting him locked in there when she tricks him a little bit, or not uh, is able to use the tool given to her by Nina, the little cheese knife in the closet in the film, at least, to injure him enough that she can get him locked in the room and can actually go recover herself a little bit. That
Mhm.
was pretty interesting, I thought. A good way to show that they are kind of uh, kindred spirits here, and that she is helping her. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I forget in the book how she gets Andrew locked in the closet. But I did like how they made it more clear that Nina was like pulling the strings and secretly helping her, and that Millie kind of figured that out um,
At least
before.
from the audience perspective, I don't know if she ever made the connection, but
Yeah, well, I think in the book she recognizes like there is some object in the room that like wouldn't be there unless Nina had put it there.
Mhm.
So she does
And
kind of
it's in the
figure out.
bucket in the book. It's
Yeah, I
not
think
it
so.
was, like, tucked away in the closet in the film, but it's, like, in the bucket.
Yeah, yeah. There's some Nina has put something in there, and she kind of, because we kind of skipped over this scene, but Nina exposes Millie's past to Andrew and like tells him that she's been in jail, she's a criminal, which makes him more likely to victimize her because he knows that she's vulnerable. She doesn't have people looking out for her that
Mhm.
will miss her if she goes missing for however many days or weeks that she's locked in the attic. Um, but what Nina doesn't tell him is that Millie was in jail for murder. And so like that's when, Millie kind of has this moment when she finds the weapon or the tool, whatever's in the attic, like, oh, Nina wants me to kill him. Or she's at least like giving me the ability to kill him because she knows what I have done in my past. Which I don't know what state this is supposed to, I think New York, right? But like I the cuz Millie goes to jail because she kills another student at her school who is in the middle of sexually assaulting her friend,
Her roommate.
her roommate. Like he's like actively like, raping her, and Millie kills him, and somehow Millie goes to jail for that because nobody else like speaks up and like,
the
explains what
roommate denies
happens.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like she should have gotten an award for that, in my opinion, but whatever. So like, but Nina knows this background information and knows that Millie has killed before, and has specifically her like victim was an abusive male. And so she like, if there was ever a time that Millie is gonna like snap and lose it and kill somebody, it's when she's confronted with an abusive male. And so I like Nina, having orchestrated the whole thing, really set it up. Like found, like she says in the book and in the movie, like I found the perfect person to do this for me.
The movie also does a brief glimpse of the bar when she works at the bar and
Hmm.
she hits one of the other male bartenders who's assaulting a female bartender. And
Mhm.
in the book, that's a bit of a mystery for a while because we know that she was let go. She was fired from the old job, but we don't know why yet. And we know that
Mhm.
like if they find out why she was fired, she'd go back to prison because
Mhm.
of her parole. And they don't make it as big of a deal in the film. They just kind of glimpse that she does have this history.
Mhm.
I'm
And good for
proud of her
her.
in those moments, but no sense of self-preservation for the not going back to prison. It feels like, just
Well, I like it because I fancy myself as a protector type of person, and like I have, if I've been in a bar and there's a guy like trying to talk to my friend a certain type of way, like I have gotten in his face and yelled at him like, "Don't talk to my friend, like get away from us," like, so I understand in that moment you're just like, this is wrong, and I need to help this other woman, I need to stop this, and having that feeling kind of come over you, and like, yeah, like I'm now putting myself in danger by confronting this man, in this public space, but this is my friend, I'm not going to let her be treated that way. And so like I understand where Millie's like, yes, there is no self-preservation, but like I've been in that kind of moment, and so yeah, you're not thinking about yourself, you just know this is wrong and I can't allow this, and I have to say something. So, like I said, Millie deserves an award, not jail time, in my opinion. But
yeah,
we live in an
that's
imperfect world.
unfortunately not the way the our society works, and
No,
half the time
sadly.
nobody believes women in those situations, and that's
Hmm.
terrible. So I am,
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, proud of her that she did those things, but it's tough when you're on parole and having to protect yourself, and she's not doing that, which is,
Yeah.
that's her choice, and her strong sense of justice said, I've got to protect these people, and I'm totally fine with that, and I probably would make the same call.
Yeah.
But especially as the oldest of all my siblings, I would be wildly protective of those around me, especially if
Hmm.
people being victimized by older people and males above them. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
definitely agree with that statement. Then we go through the next scene. Here is kind of where we get the death of Andrew Winchester and all of its aftermath, which comes about because she gets that ability to get power over him for a little bit. But then after having him up there, she kind of reverses the whole cycle of abuse and has him doing sort of the same sorts of things he was having his victims do. She has him pull out a tooth because of his perfect smile being what his mother comments on, and he's commented on about how nobody can resist that perfect smile. And then Nina comes back to try and help her and ends up letting him out of the attic, and that becomes a whole chase scene that you were talking about that in the film that wasn't in the book, but adds that tension before we find him uh, on the staircase trying to convince Nina that she should come back to him, and he falls to his death after he tries to attack her, and Millie comes back and helps by pushing him off the
Hmm.
railing.
This is probably the biggest change of the film to the book. And I know that I complained about Sydney Sweeney's acting in the last episode. I do want to say she has really good comedic timing, because the crazy that kind of came out in this scene, in the next few scenes was good. I do like, and I liked the change, and seeing her and Amanda act together in this sense as opposed to Nina being crazy towards Millie and gaslighting her. Um, but yeah, so again, in the book, she makes him pull out more than one tooth because he didn't pull it out at the root. Um, and that mirrored what he did to her and what he had been doing to Nina, like the 100 strands of hair. She didn't, like, one hair was not at the root, so she made her pull out another 100. And then the 3 hours, it was only 2 hours and 59 minutes, so he made her do it for another 3 hours. So she was like, oops, no root, pull out another tooth. And then she accidentally kills him in the book. She left him there too long and he like starved
Hmm.
to death or got dehydrated
Yeah.
or bled to death, maybe even.
Because I think it was dehydration because she had already drank the 3 little water bottles, and then she locked him in there
Right.
too long, and he like died that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So when Nina came back, they found him dead. And then Millie's freaking out because she thinks she's going to go back to prison because she killed somebody. And then that's when Nina does the whole cover up. Like, go, you were on break for a week. I'll figure this out. And then, yeah, Nina kind of takes over. There's no light bulb thing that happens between them. She doesn't leave the tooth on the floor. And then the chase scene, of course, doesn't happen because he's already dead in the room. So I'm fine with it because it is a movie. You do have to have some dramatic tension at the end. Like, you have to have that climax. So having a little chase scene at the end works for the film. That I don't think it would work in the book. I think how the book handled it was great too.
Yeah.
Do you think an accidental death of falling like that is a better ending than just dying and have to cover up like him being up in the room and not getting enough water?
I think it's harder in the book. Well, I think him falling is harder because correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah-Daye, but in the book, what Nina says is Millie was out on vacation for a week and I was away visiting Cecilia at camp or something, and he accidentally locked himself in there, and that's how he died. Which
she doesn't stab him with the butter knife in the book. Correct. You're right. You are right.
So it's, yes, his teeth are missing, which is suspicious, but like that's it. Like, he has no other like major injuries to him other than his teeth being missing, and then like she makes him put the books on his groin. And so like his like genitals are crushed by the books. And so those two things,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, like those two things, I think are a lot easier for a cop who like has a vendetta against him already because her family member has been abused by him. Like, it's a lot easier to explain those things away versus when he falls, like, why is he changing a light bulb in the middle of the night? How did he fall? He's got a stab wound in his neck and the teeth are missing. And like, there's all this other forensic evidence that like anybody other than that cop who looks at that, like, the crime scene investigators and the autopsy doctor, like, there's a lot going on that has to be covered up and explained away. So I think like that kind of plot hole being left at the end is like, it's a much bigger plot hole than him being allowed to die of like dehydration.
Right. I think a lot more people are going to be annoyed by that if only seeing the film and being like, there's no way they would get away with this murder. Whereas in the book, like you said, it does make more sense because he's dehydrated. And so like, it does make sense that he could have locked himself in that room. It's a lot more believable in the book. And I think that's maybe the one thing the book does better.
Yeah.
My struggle with the room is that if I happened to have locked myself in there, I would have been trying everything to get out in some way. I would have been taking light switch covers off, trying to find a way to, get to the locks, or start a little fire to burn a wall down, whatever. There was hinges in the closet thing in the movie. There is that window that I would have managed to try to break off a leg of the bed or whatever I could do to break that window and get somebody to help me. The fact that nothing happens in the room except for him just dying in there would be my suspicion as a cop or whatever. I'm just sitting here not doing it. Even in the film, everybody was locked in that room, did nothing to try and save themselves. I felt like they just went along with it, which can be fine for what anxiety and what fear can do to you. But I just felt like I would have been trying to get out of here.
I explained that away, which like again is me doing more work than the author did in the first place, which is a separate issue. Right. But like, I explained it away like he specifically built that attic to be his torture chamber. So like, he used the bulletproof glass on the window, and he like, specifically built it to be a prison cell for whoever. So, and maybe that because like his first fiance, the sister, got out, so maybe he learned some lessons, like maybe she did break the window or do something to free herself, and so then he made those adjustments for Nina and for Millie to to lock it down more so it was harder to break out. Because I mean, like, when Millie first goes up there and she's moving into the room because she's the live-in housemaid, she sees the scratches on the door from assumedly from Nina. So like, he probably has like reinforced hinges, and like he's probably done a lot of work to make this space a prison, or that you
Mhm.
can't escape. Um, and so that I'm able to kind of like headcanon that away.
And I can get there too, but until you've tried anything, you don't know when you're in that situation. So I would have liked to have seen at least somebody try to do more than just slam themselves into a door that swings the other way. That's only my only problem with it. But otherwise, yeah, it's understandable given fear and given the situation they're being put in. They're afraid.
Mhm.
Even I mean, even if you get out, what are you going to do? He's got a
Yeah.
camera on you. He's got all this stuff. But I
Yeah.
would have
Well,
wanted someone to try.
and both of these women too, like they're tiny women. They're not like trained
Hmm.
fighters. Like even like, there's no mention of either of them. Like Millie just got out of jail. Like and Nina is like a housewife. Like there's not really a mention of them like working out and like being very fit or very strong. Like they're, even if they like had the smarts to think of something else, like physically were they even capable of it? And again, like
Sure.
part of him being that evil abuser, like he knows what type of prey to pick, to make them more easily susceptible to him. So
Mhm.
I keep that in mind as well. And so that's why, like, as a woman, like you always, always be on your guard, ladies. And be aware of your surroundings and stuff, and understand, like, just we're we're women, and men are men, and there's a lot there's a lot of bad stuff that can happen, you know with
Mhm.
Absolutely.
these people.
I walked my wife through all the steps that I would have taken to try and get out of there. So if she's ever, stuck in a situation, she has not with me, but with any other abusive situation that you never know what can happen. That she
Yeah.
knows at least what to try. Save,
Mhm.
be willing to say, able to save herself if something happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. So and then he dies from the fall, and then we get the scenes with the cop. The cops that come after she tells Mina to get out of here. Well, she'll take care of it. She's talking, and they end up saying, we believe, we're suspicious of these things. And then the cop, like we said, they were talked to, said my sister was the one that was engaged to him at first, and she's never been the same. And she kind of looks the other way and says, okay, it's just an
Hmm.
accidental death. Moving on. Then we move on
Hmm.
to the funeral scene where the mother and Nina and Cece are mourning the death of Andrew, and greeting guests and all that, and get a little bit of a line from the mother talking about how he had the perfect smile, and how you get those little creepy moments of hearing that she was created this cycle that of abuse that
Mhm.
happened here, and
Hmm.
then move on to all the Nina stuff here in a sec. But what do you guys think of the funeral scene and all that?
I do think the book made it a little bit more obvious, because I think the line is a little different. Like, I think she says, "I'm glad you taught him to take care of his teeth," or something like that. I mean, Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she had a little bit more, like, it was a little bit more evident that she did it to him, and then he did it to her, and and then Nina was also doing it to Andrew.
Hmm.
So yeah, that woman is just psycho.
Yeah,
Psycho.
totally. I think in the book it's much more of an obvious, like, wink wink, nod nod, like, the mom, like, has, like, predictably she's probably seen her son's body, and like before the funeral and stuff, and she saw like all the damage that was done to him. She's like, I know what this is, I know how this happened. And like, yeah, like if he doesn't take care of his smile or his hair or whatever, then like, yeah, he deserved it. And it is what it is. Like, she's very cold and heartless towards her son.
Mhm.
And yeah, like, I'm glad you taught him a lesson, basically.
Yeah.
So,
So she
but
sees
like,
it as more of the same abuse that, or the same punishment of he didn't take care of his
mhm,
family, so he doesn't deserve it. And in this case, he, yeah, was taught
yeah,
his lesson in a final way.
yeah, exactly. And it, like,
Interesting.
I know you're kind of talking about, like, what if it was the dad, like, because the the mom is the one giving these lines, I feel like it's trying to make it clear that she's the one who was doing the abusing of Andrew to turn him into the monster that he grew up to be. Like, yeah, it could have been the dad, but like, I don't know, I feel like even with like a Stockholm syndrome kind of thing, like if the abuser dies, then like you're not going to go out and abuse the next person. You kind of just like go on with your life. So for Andrew to be like that with his dad having died, I feel like it was mostly the mom and her doing that to him.
Yeah, and the way they portrayed it, I saw that definitely. I was just thinking that it almost could have been interesting to have that little wink, wink moment of like, I did this, I've been through this cycle before, and
Mm-hmm.
of killing off my husband because he was the abuser and whatnot. A wink of, I see what you did, and good job. You finally broke free, and then they move on their separate ways. I thought could have made for a really interesting, like, oh my, what happened in the past? We need that prequel now. Sort
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
But I understand it. Yeah, it was definitely her that was the portrayed as the abuser in the past in this story.
Mm-hmm.
But and then they have anything to add, Sarah-Daye, about those things? No.
Nope.
Then we have the moment where Millie shows up at the funeral. And Nina says, I thought I told you to go get out of here. And he says I had to come and make sure everybody was okay or whatever. And Nina gives her a $100,000 check and recommends her to another friend for a similar service. And we get that little final scene of, vigilante career has begun.
Mm-hmm.
And we do get that vigilante tease in the book, but the change in the check is she does give her a year's salary in the book, and it's like towards the end of the year where she's like, okay, now I need to get a job because I can't, like, the salary that she gave me is running out. And that's when pretty much shot for shot, I think that scene at the end is what happens in the book with the new family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As far
Yeah.
as a job for her parole goes, I don't think a check really helps her. So that's the part I was like, that's not helpful here. A
Yeah.
$100,000 check from my boss who just died's wife just looks suspicious at this point, and
Right.
doesn't do anything for me as far as needing to have a job for my parole, and doesn't help me with a place to live really, other than that I can go rent something, but it doesn't give me a job, doesn't do any of the stuff I need here. So I thought that
We
was
love a little
weird,
plot hole.
but I can see, she was just giving her the reward and moving on, and
Mm-hmm.
then we get the recommendation at the end that it was a fun scene that had me a little bit hooked into like, all right, I want to see what she does next with this, at least the
Yeah.
character.
I think honestly, probably the best part of the movie was that end scene into the epic needle drop of Taylor Swift. That probably got the biggest reaction out of me. I was like, "Yo, like let's go! Like this is so cool." Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it last week too, or I alluded to it. But if there was anything that was gonna make me like be glad that I read this book and watched this movie, it's that setup of potentially having Millie going around and just murking abusive husbands. Like, I'm all about that. And so, if we can keep coming up with ways with minimal plot holes for her to get away with it, because, like, at some point, it's suspicious that you work for these families and the husbands keep dying. That's a little like somebody's going to pick
Right.
up on that at some point. But I guess I'm interested to see how that could work out.
Maybe
And
the cop needs
if
to become involved. Maybe they need to like actually incorporate this a little bit of
yeah,
bringing everybody
yeah,
together to make a plan. Yeah, I think it needs a
yeah.
little bit of explaining, but I could see it getting
And
interesting.
I don't know that the cop would like let her get away with multiple murders. Like, he had an emotional investment in this one because in the book it was his daughter, in the movie it was her sister. But and then maybe in the movie it'll make more sense because of the girl power thing and protecting
Right.
women. So maybe
Female
the female
protection.
cop will be more inclined to help her. But I don't think in the books. I mean, I haven't read the sequel, so I don't know what happens if he comes back or not. But I don't think it would be as much sense for him to be okay with her killing other people. Whereas he had the emotional connection to this case.
Yeah.
Right. Now the sequel will be like the Star Wars sequels. Somehow Andrew returned.
No, literally.
There's your twist.
Somehow Millie kept getting away with murder.
But yeah, so overall, you guys are not excited or excited for the next set here? What do you think? Are we gonna look forward to the next thing?
I would not have gone to see this movie if it wasn't for the podcast. If it was on streaming, I might have checked it out when I was bored. I will probably watch the sequels if we want to do it for the podcast, but I'm not going to seek them out.
I'm interested enough in how the next phase of Millie's journey is that I would see the movie again. I have the unlimited movie package with Regal. So it's not like I got to pay out of pocket for it in the moment. So I would go see the next movie if it gets made. But I would only suffer through another book if we were going to cover it here. So
all right, so it's up to you, listeners. If when this next one comes out, let us know if you want us to torture ourselves by reading this the next book in the series, and we'll take it on if enough of you give us that feedback. Otherwise, we might just let that one go.
Yeah. And if you really liked it, again, change our minds, convince us that it was great.
Yeah, I mean, she has other adaptations in the works, I believe. So let us know if you want us to cover those as well. Write in.
Please don't.
Don't do it. All right. Yeah, looking forward to hearing from some of our listeners on this stuff. But otherwise, anything else you guys feel like was missed in our review of the scene by scene? Anything you guys want to mention before we hop off here?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else.
There's a lot that they pack into the film, given the length it is and how much was in the book. But I think we gave a pretty good overview of it. People can make their decisions on whether they want to jump in or not based on our review if they're not worried about spoilers. But otherwise, thanks for watching books with us, and thank you for joining me, Jordyn, Sarah-Daye.
As always.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Book Watch. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of page-to-screen adaptations. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share it with your fellow book and movie lovers. If you'd prefer to watch along, you can check the show out on YouTube. You can follow the show on Instagram at Bookwatch Podcast, and you can follow me, Sarah-Daye, on Instagram at captain.mcdee. That's MCDEE. You can also join the conversation in the Book Watch Lounge on Facebook at www.facebook.com/groups/bookwatchlounge. If you would like to support the podcast, you can join the Patreon at www.patreon.com/bookwatchpodcast. Tiers start at only $4 a month, and I'd love to have you over there. If you have a favorite adaptation you'd like to cover with me, I'd love for you to apply to be on the show with the contact form on our website at www.bookwatchpodcast.com. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and I'll see you next week.